Good morning. Welcome to the seventh Sunday of Easter and also our Memorial Day observance. Our scripture lesson today comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the 26th verse. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. In the movie The Right Stuff, pilot and adventurer Pancho Barnes runs a watering hole near Edwards Air Force Base for pilots. It was called the Happy Bottoms Riding Club. One day, a pilot new to the establishment admires all the pictures of test pilots on the wall behind her. "What do you have to do to get your picture on that wall?" he asks, eager to have his join the others. Pancho's eyes narrow and she replies, "You've got to die, honey." Tomorrow is Memorial Day. It is not Veterans Day. It is something other than Veterans Day because of what you have to do to be remembered on this day. It is not, despite our newspaper inserts, a day when Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen died so we may buy a new flat-screen television on sale. It is not a day when young men give their last full measure so we can take a day off from work. It is not a day when any of them will be living it up at the beach, in the mountains, or at cookouts. They won't be living it up at anything, ever again. The giving of their lives, these men and these women, means they have earned a day when we will pause and think about some lesson, some life-altering insight we can take from this weekend. One of those lessons comes home to me on a regular basis. Imagine that you are living in a small town in the 1930s. There is little money, and that's okay because everyone is in the same condition with you, except a few of your friends that you notice wearing National Guard uniforms. You find out that not only are their uniforms attracting the girls, but the little bit of extra money they make drilling on weekends and in the summer helps to pay for the dates. So you do what a lot of the young men like yourself are doing. You join your National Guard unit. The life you find in a Guard unit is good. You go once each year to an extended drill. This isn't so bad. A lot like camping out with your friends. And on Liberty, you get into the big city of Richmond. There are hijinks with friends, beer if you like, and women you meet and come to like very much. These days are a young man's dream come true. As the weekends and summer drills go on, the dark clouds of war approach. By April of 1941, your unit has been called to active service. When Pearl Harbor is bombed in December of that year, you don't mind active service. You and your community are angry over the attack. You are ready to defend your country, though you don't know what that means because you've never been to war, only fought off the occasional fox out of the chicken yard. Here again, for a time, even defending your country isn't so bad. You take a crowded boat ride to England and find there is more drilling. Now there is English beer, and there are plenty of English women. You are the reason the Britons often lamented that the problem with American soldiers is that they were overpaid, oversexed, and over here. By 1944, it becomes evident you and your now long-time buddies are going to invade Hitler's fortress Europe. For 4 years, the people of Europe have been held hostage by Nazi Germany. Your old National Guard unit is now part of the 29th Infantry Division and are on the threshold of what General Dwight Eisenhower calls the great crusade to which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you, the General reminds. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. According to the order of battle, your company will be the first to go ashore under the eyes of the world, leading a part of the American effort on a strip of sand known as Omaha Beach. On the morning of June 6th, the invasion begins. After a rough ride in your landing craft, the doors drop open, and over 6 years of camaraderie becomes focused in 10 minutes of indescribable hell. In 10 minutes, your old National Guard unit and the town of Bedford, Virginia, loses 19 of the 30 friends and neighbors who make the landings. Years of growing together as infants and adolescents. Parents losing sons. Brothers there on the beach together, separated by death. In 10 minutes, a lifetime of becoming is seared away, and few are left. Imagine you are one of the ones to survive this Holocaust. Others of your old unit will die in the days ahead as the divisions struggle across Europe. But on VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, you are still alive. You make another rolling ship ride home. You ride the rails into the foothills. You are greeted by family and your sweetheart and those who have lived, probably not to tell the story, at least not all of it. How do you talk about war so that anyone not there can ever understand? You cannot hope to take people where they have not been. But you are alive. And so one Sunday you find enough faith left in yourself, despite all you have witnessed and experienced, to get up and to go to church. You arrive to find there's a pretty good crowd. After all, war brings out a bit more resolve in folks to practice their faith. But still, there are some who aren't to be found. Having been in the military, this is something you do not recognize. Unless someone is AWL, of course. People who have placed their names on a roll and say, I will follow Jesus. People in the community who have committed themselves to be Christ to their neighbors in that place, not there, not to be found. Seems some don't like the current pastor, and others got mad at a fellow member during a horseshoe game at the church picnic last summer. They painted the sanctuary the wrong color, another missing member had complained, and vowed to never come back again. Following church, there is a business meeting, and during the meeting you're surprised to find the owner of the hardware store in a wrestler's clinch with the local feed store owner. No, not a verbal clinch, but it's the real thing. It seems there's a disagreement over who's going to pick out the new steeple for the church. You decide you've had enough of war, and having seen war, can't understand people who say, I'll be there, and then they go AWOL in the face of human need. So you leave church to rarely return, save the funeral of a friend or two. I've known veterans who had little to do with church. There are many reasons. I can't help but wonder if experiencing war and then watching churches wage their own spats doesn't have its negative effect. I am convinced that one of the tragedies of Memorial Day is that we are remembering people who had something to teach the church. Every person who ever saw combat, right there, face to face and hand to hand with those who desired their lives. So close that these people had no broad perspective of the battlefield, no understanding of the overarching plan of battle, no way to write later of what was happening a mile away or perhaps even yards away, but only understanding that right there, in that place where you can only hang on to the man to your left and the man to your right, this is your whole world. The person to your left, the person to your right. This is your whole life until there is no more life. The person to your left and the person to your right. This is the lesson those who have passed from us could teach us in the church. There was a time when the church could teach it and teach it well. In Acts 2, the folks in church had all things in common. There was no field that was mine, and that one over there was yours. There was no food pantry for my family here, and yours is in the house over there. There was no closet full of clothes for me, while not enough for your family. There wasn't a health plan for you and not even an aspirin for me. There wasn't my church trying to beat the daylights out of your church because we're more holy and more loving. We've got a better preacher, a better choir, a better building, a better doctrine. There was a time when we had all things in common. It didn't last long, but it was there. Every now and then, when we read Paul's mail, we find there was a time when what was most important to the church was not the long view of history, not a concern for how the history of the church might be written for folks 2 millennium away. In the hot fires of persecution, there was only a concern for the people to your left and the people to your right. To the church in Rome, Paul writes, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another." To the church in Corinth, Paul writes, "If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it." If there is any lesson we will maintain, and when need be, we must relearn, it is that the entire Christian church once knew that the focus of our lives is bound up in one little word, with. The word with. It is a truth our soldiers know. A truth that the ones we remember today gave their last full measure of devotion to prove. It is the lesson I most hope to believe in. It is the lesson we in the church must claim and, when necessary, reclaim. Not just when we are sick. Not just when we are in love and need to get married. Not just when we've lost. Not just when we're down and out. The most important perspective is not my family, my house, my land, my life. The most important vision is not the long view, but it is nearsighted. So nearsighted as to see the people to your right and to your left. This is worthy of our lives. This is exactly why we call Jesus Emmanuel. It means God with us. If God saw in His creation reason enough to come to earth to be with us, then to identify with the Christ who is Emmanuel means we must become people who believe in one word so strongly. It is the word that defines our living. The word is with. When we make a commitment to Jesus in this world, we make a commitment to the people of Christ in whatever community of faith we may find ourselves. Christianity is never about any one person. It is always about community. It is always about a people with one another. It is always about with. If we want to understand what we are to be about, I encourage us to make a journey this year. Take the time. Go up to Arlington. Get there in the early morning and walk among the hallowed white glistening stones that run up and down the hills for as far as the eye can see. Not a one is buried alone. They are all buried with. They are buried as they lived. Here is the lesson that goes with us for a lifetime. Amen.